The smell of gasoline mixing with wet asphalt. That's what I remember most. That, and the crushing weight of metal against my chest. Funny how your brain holds onto the strangest details when everything else is falling apart. I'm 68 years old. Spent 40 years building homes with these hands, raising a family, doing everything right. Or so I thought. Because lying there in that crumpled Honda on a cold November evening, watching my own blood drip onto the dashboard, I learned something they don't teach you in church or at family dinners. Sometimes the people who share your blood are the first ones to let you bleed out. My name is Robert Mitchell. Most folks call me Bob. I'm a retired contractor from Richmond, Virginia. Got 2 kids, Michael and Jennifer. Had a wife for 38 years before cancer took her 5 years back. After Margaret passed, I threw myself into volunteer work at the VA. Kept my mind busy, kept my hands working, kept me from sitting alone in that empty house thinking about all the conversations we'd never have again. The accident happened on a Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving. I'd just left the hardware store, picking up supplies for a small repair job at the community center. Light rain had started falling, the kind that makes everything slick but doesn't seem dangerous until it is. I was driving down Monument Avenue when I saw it. A delivery truck 2 lanes over, going too fast with conditions. The driver was looking down, probably at his phone. I saw him drift, saw his tires catch the painted median line, saw the exact moment he realized he'd lost control. There wasn't time to think, barely time to breathe, just metal meeting metal with a sound like the world cracking open. The impact hit my passenger side first, sent my car spinning across 2 lanes. I remember my head snapping sideways, the seatbelt catching, something in my chest making a sound it shouldn't. Then a second impact as I hit the guardrail, and everything went white with pain. When I came back to myself, there were voices, distant at first, then closer. Someone was trying to open my door, but it wouldn't budge. The frame was bent. I could taste copper. My mouth had filled with blood from where I'd bitten my tongue. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" A young woman's voice, steady but urgent. "Don't try to move. Ambulance is coming." I tried to answer, but only managed a wet cough. Something was wrong with my breathing. Every inhale felt like knives. The paramedics arrived fast. I'll give Richmond EMS credit for that. They had to cut me out of the car. I remember the shriek of metal being peeled back, the cold air hitting my face, strong hands lifted me onto a backboard. Possible flailed chest. One of them said, "BP's dropping. We need to move." In the ambulance, they stuck an oxygen mask over my face. The lead paramedic, a black woman with kind eyes and quick hands, kept talking to me, asking my name, asking if I knew where I was. Standard stuff to keep me conscious. "Do you have family we can call?" she asked. I nodded weakly. "Son, I managed. Michael. We'll get him," she promised. I didn't know then that promise would turn out to be worth less than the rain-soaked pavement we'd just left behind. The ER was chaos. Bright lights. People shouting medical terms I couldn't follow. Someone cut off my jacket, my favorite flannel that Margaret had given me years ago. I wanted to protest, but couldn't find the energy. A doctor appeared above me, older, gray-haired, glasses sliding down his nose. "Mr. Mitchell, I'm Dr. Patel. You've been in a serious accident. We need to run some scans, but from what I can see, you have multiple rib fractures and possibly internal bleeding. Do you understand?" I tried to nod. Pain lanced through my entire torso. "We've called your emergency contact," he continued. "Your son, Michael. He should be here soon." They wheeled me to imaging, CT scan, X-rays. I lost track of time in that cold room, just machines whirring and technicians telling me to hold still, hold my breath, just a few more seconds. When they brought me back to the ER bay, Dr. Patel's face had changed, more serious now, more concerned. "Mr. Mitchell," he said, pulling a stool close, "your CT shows significant internal bleeding. Your spleen is lacerated, and there's fluid building in your chest cavity. We need to take you to surgery immediately." The words took a moment to register through the fog of pain and medication. Surgery. Immediate. "But we need consent," he continued. You're not in a state to sign, so we need your son to authorize the procedure. Called him. I rasped, "We've been trying." He answered once, but Dr. Patel hesitated, and that hesitation told me more than words could. He said, "He's in the middle of something important, a business dinner. He asked if it could wait until tomorrow." I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them because it was easier than processing what I just heard. My son, my firstborn, the boy I'd taught to throw a baseball and drive a stick shift, had been told his father needed emergency surgery, and he'd asked if it could wait. We explained the urgency. Dr. Patel continued, his voice careful. He said, and I'm quoting here, "Dad's tough. He'll be fine. Just call me if it's really serious." The nurse standing nearby looked away. Even she couldn't hide her disgust. "What about your daughter?" Dr. Patel asked gently. "Tried Jennifer?" I whispered. He stepped away to make the call. I watched him through the glass partition, watched his face as he talked, watched his shoulders slump. He came back shaking his head. "She's at a spa retreat. No self-service until tomorrow morning. The receptionist said she left explicit instructions not to be disturbed for any reason." Something inside me cracked then. Not my ribs, though those hurt bad enough. Something deeper. Something I'd been holding together since Margaret died. "Mr. Mitchell," Dr. Patel said, his voice dropping low, "I'm going to be blunt. Without surgery in the next hour, you will likely die. Your children are refusing to authorize care. Do you have anyone else? Anyone at all?" I closed my eyes, thought about my empty house, my empty life, the volunteer work that kept me busy but not whole. "There's no one," I said. Actually, a voice came from behind Dr. Patel. "There might be." I turned my head, which sent fresh waves of pain down my neck. Standing in the doorway of my ER bay was a young man I'd seen around the neighborhood, Carlos Rodriguez. Couldn't have been more than 25. He lived 2 houses down from me with his parents. "Carlos." I managed. He stepped closer, looking worried and determined all at once. "Mr. Bob, I was driving home from work and saw the accident. Recognize your car. I followed the ambulance here." "You didn't have to." "I heard what the doctor said," Carlos interrupted, glancing at Dr. Patel. "His kids won't sign?" Dr. Patel's jaw tightened. "That's confidential. But since Mr. Mitchell is conscious, I can say we're having difficulty reaching appropriate consent." Carlos looked at me with an intensity that reminded me of Margaret when she'd made up her mind about something. "Mr. Bob, you remember last summer when my dad had his stroke?" I nodded slightly. "Helped with the ramp." "You did more than that. You spent 3 weeks rebuilding our entire porch so Dad could get his wheelchair in and out. Wouldn't take a dime. You said family looks out for each other." His voice cracked. "You said we were neighbors, and that was close enough to family." I remembered. Juan Rodriguez had been my friend for 15 years. When he had the stroke, their family had been lost. I'd done what anyone should do. "Can I sign?" Carlos asked Dr. Patel directly. "Can I give consent for the surgery?" Dr. Patel looked startled. "You're not immediate family." His immediate family just chose business dinners and spa days over his life. Carlos shot back. "There's got to be something you can do." Dr. Patel pulled out his phone, stepped away, made a call. The conversation was quick, hushed. When he came back, his expression had shifted. "There's a provision," he said slowly, "for emergency medical consent when family members are unavailable or unwilling, given the circumstances and Mr. Mitchell's condition. If he verbally agrees to designate you as a temporary medical proxy, we can proceed." He looked at me. "Mr. Mitchell, do you authorize Carlos Rodriguez to make medical decisions on your behalf?" I looked at this young man who'd followed an ambulance because he recognized a neighbor's car, who'd stood up to a doctor for an old man he owed nothing to, who'd remembered a summer of building a wheelchair ramp like it meant something. "Yes," I said, "I authorize Carlos." "Say it clearly for the record," Dr. Patel instructed, pulling out his phone to record. I took as deep a breath as I could manage. "I, Robert Mitchell, authorize Carlos Rodriguez to act as my medical proxy and make decisions regarding my care." Dr. Patel stopped the recording. That'll work. Carlos, I need you to sign here. Carlos grabbed the pen like it was a lifeline and signed without hesitation. As they prepared to wheel me toward the operating room, he grabbed my hand. You're going to be fine, Mr. Bob. I'm not going anywhere. They gave me something that made everything fuzzy. The last thing I remember before going under was Carlos's face, determined and scared, nothing like my son's voice asking if it could wait. I woke up slowly, like surfacing from deep water. Everything hurt, but it was a different kind of hurt. Surgical pain. The pain of being put back together. The recovery room was dim. Machines beeped softly. A nurse noticed my eyes opening and smiled. Welcome back, Mr. Mitchell. Surgery went well. You're in recovery. Carlos, I croaked. In the waiting room. Has been this whole time. 5 hours. She adjusted something on my 4. That's a good kid you got there. Not mine, I wanted to say. But maybe that didn't matter anymore. They moved me to a regular room around midnight. My chest was wrapped tight. Tubes ran everywhere. But I was alive. And sitting in the chair beside my bed, head tilted back, mouth open, snoring softly, was Carlos. He'd pulled his jacket over himself like a blanket. One hand was stretched out toward my bed. Like even in sleep, he wanted to make sure I was still there. I must have made a sound because his eyes flew open. He sat up quick, nearly falling out of the chair. Mr. Bob, you're awake. How do you feel? Should I call the nurse? Do you need water? Easy, I said, my voice rough in the breathing tube. I am okay. He sat back down, relief flooding his face. Man, you scared me. They said it was close. You stayed. Of course I stayed. He said it like there was no other option. You think I was going to sign papers and then just leave? Nah, we Rodriguez men, we see things through. Your parents. I called them. They want to come, but Mom's not doing well, and Dad can't drive at night anymore. They said to tell you they're praying. He reached over and carefully patted my arm. And I'm here representing the family. That word again. Family. Did my kids... I couldn't finish the question. Carlos's face darkened. The hospital called them again after surgery. Left messages. Nothing back yet. I turned my head toward the window, mostly so he wouldn't see my face. You'd think at 68 you'd be past crying over your children disappointing you. You'd be wrong. Mr. Bob, Carlos said quietly, I don't understand everything that happened with your kids, but I know this. You've been more of a father figure to me in 2 years than a lot of people get their whole lives. I just helped with a ramp. You did more than that. You came to my community college graduation. You helped me practice for my contractor's license exam. You taught me how to use a table saw without losing a finger. He laughed softly. You showed up, man. Every time. For me, for my dad, for half the neighborhood. I didn't know what to say to that. The doctor said you'll need someone around for a few weeks, Carlos continued. Help with basics until you heal up. I already cleared it with my boss. I can work half days and be there to rest. Carlos, you can't. I already called my mom. She's making you her special pozole. Says it cures everything from broken bones to broken hearts. He grinned. And she's probably right. Mom's pozole is magic. You don't have to do this, I said. He leaned forward, his young face serious. Yeah, y do, because that's what you taught me. When someone needs help, you don't ask if you have to. You just show up. The nurse came in to check my vitals, gave Carlos an approving look. Visiting hours ended at 9, she said. But I'll pretend I didn't see you. Just keep quiet. After she left, Carlos pulled the thin hospital blanket up higher on me. Get some sleep, Mr. Bob. I'll be right here. You should go home, I protested weakly. I will, eventually. He settled back in the chair. But not until I know you're okay. I closed my eyes, exhausted beyond measure. Just before sleep took me, I heard him whisper, We got you, Mr. Bob. I promise. And I believed him, more than I believed in anything for a long time. What I didn't know then was that this was just the beginning. That my son's refusal to sign those papers would set off a chain of events that would rewrite what family meant, that would force me to confront truths I've been avoiding for years, and that the real reckoning was still ahead, waiting for me in the days to come. Recovery in a hospital teaches you things about yourself, mostly how helpless you can feel when your body stops cooperating. Simple things like sitting up or reaching for water become these huge tasks. Your pride takes a beating right alongside your ribs. By the second morning, I could stay awake longer. The fog from anesthesia had lifted enough that reality settled in hard. My chest felt like someone had parked a truck on it. Every breath was work. The surgical site burned under bandages. But I was alive. More than I could say about my dignity when a nurse half my age had to help me to the bathroom. Carlos showed up at 7 in the morning with coffee for himself and Jell-O for me. The kid looked tired, dark circles under his eyes, but he had this determined energy about him. "Morning, Mr. Bob," he said, entirely too cheerful. "How's the pain?" "Manager Abel, I lied." He saw right through it. "Nurse told me you refused the pain meds at 4 a.m. Makes me fuzzy." "Yeah, well, being in pain makes you grumpy. Pick your poison." He set the Jell-O on my table and pulled the chair closer. "My mom's coming by later. Fair warning. She's bringing enough food to feed an army, and she will try to hug you. Your ribs might not survive it, but she won't take no for an answer." Despite everything, I smiled. Maria Rodriguez was a force of nature. 5 feet tall and pure determination wrapped in an apron. "Your dad doing okay?" I asked, changing the subject for myself. "Yeah, he wanted to come, but stairs are still tough. He says to tell you he owes you big time." Carlos paused. He also said if your kids don't show up soon, he's going to call them himself and give them a piece of his mind in Spanish. And trust me, Dad's Spanish cussing is next level. I looked away. We both knew my kids weren't coming. 2 days post-surgery, and still nothing. Not a call, not a text, nothing. The silence stretched until Carlos broke it. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Why do you think they didn't come?" I've been asking myself the same thing on repeat. I don't know. Used to think I did. Used to think maybe I worked too much when they were young, or pushed them too hard, or wasn't there enough. I shifted, wincing. But the truth is, I don't know when exactly they stopped seeing me as their father and started seeing me as just this obligation they'd rather avoid. That's messed up, Mr. Bob. It is what it is. No. Carlos leaned forward. It's wrong. You're a good man. You show up for people. You care. That's supposed to mean something. Should, I agreed, doesn't always. A nurse came in to check my vitals and change my bandages. Carlos excused himself, giving me privacy. When he came back, he had his laptop. "I've been thinking," he said, settling into the chair. "You're going to need help when you get discharged. The doctor said at least 4 to 6 weeks before you're fully mobile. I can manage." "With what?" "Your good intentions." He opened the laptop. "I talked to Mom and Dad. You're staying with us." "Carlos." "No negociable. We've got the guest room. Dad's already on the first floor, now anyway, so we're set up for recovery care. Mom's a retired nurse. And I work from home 2 days a week." He looked up from the screen. "Plus, you helped us. Now we help you. That's how this works. I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm telling you. Big difference." He grinned. "Besides, you think I'm going to let you go home to that empty house alone? You'll be eating cereal out of the box for dinner and pretending that counts as a meal. Not happening." Before I could argue more, Dr. Patel walked in with a tablet and a serious expression. Carlos started to leave, but the doctor waved him back. "Actually, you should hear this too, Carlos. You're listed as a medical proxy." Dr. Patel pulled up a chair. "Mr. Mitchell, your surgery went well. We repaired the spleen laceration and drained the chest cavity. But your recovery is going to be longer than I initially thought." "How long?" 8 weeks minimum before you can return to any physical labor. 12 weeks before you're back to full capacity. And that's if everything heals properly." He looked at me seriously. "You're 68. Your body doesn't bounce back like it used to, The number hit hard. 8 weeks. I'd never been sidelined that long in my life. You'll need physical therapy. Someone to help with daily activities at first. No driving for at least a month. No lifting anything over 5 pounds for 6 weeks. I know you're independent, but you're going to need support. He's got it, Carlos said firmly. My family will make sure he's taken care of. Dr. Patel smiled slightly. Good, because I tried reaching his son again this morning. Left another message. Still no call back. The room went quiet. Even Carlos, usually quick with words, didn't know what to say to that. When can I discharge him? Carlos asked finally. If everything looks good, maybe 3 more days. We want to make sure there's no infection and that he's stable enough to manage outside a hospital setting. Dr. Patel stood. I'll check on you this evening, Mr. Mitchell. After he left, Carlos and I sat there with the weight of reality. 3 more days here, then weeks of recovery. All of it without my own kids caring enough to pick up the phone. You know what? Carlos said suddenly. Forget them. You got us now. You don't have to. Stop saying that. He stood up, started pacing. You keep acting like we're doing you this huge favor, like we're going above and beyond. But Mr. Bob, this is just basic human decency. This is what people do for each other. He stopped pacing and looked at me directly. When my dad had his stroke, you know what people did? Most of our neighbors felt sorry for us, said nice things, then went back to their lives. But you showed up every single day for 3 weeks. You built that ram with your own hands and your own money. You brought dinner twice a week. You sat with Dad when he was depressed about not being able to walk right. His voice got thick. You did that for us. We weren't your kids. We weren't your responsibility. We were just neighbors. But you treated us like family. Your dad's a good man, I said. Deserve the help. And so do you. Carlos threw his hands up. That's what I'm trying to say. You deserve people showing up for you. You deserve family. Even if your blood family won't be it, we will. I felt something crack open in my chest, and it wasn't the surgical site. It was something deeper, something I've been keeping locked down since Margaret died. Maybe longer. Thank you. I managed. Carlos sat back down, composing himself. Got worked up there. Don't be sorry. You're right. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. Carlos reached for it, glanced at the screen, and his face changed. It's your son, he said quietly. My heart jumped. Finally, I took the phone with shaking hands. Hello, Dad, it's Michael. His voice was brisk, professional, the same tone he used in business calls. Got a message saying you were in the hospital. Yeah, car accident. Had surgery. Oh. A pause. Sorry to hear that. Everything okay now? Everything okay? I'd nearly died 2 days ago, and he was asking like I'd had a cold. I'm recovering, I said carefully. Good. Listen, I'm actually in between meetings. Just wanted to call back, since the hospital seemed insistent. He sounded annoyed. They said something about needing consent for surgery? They needed it 3 days ago, Michael, during the emergency. Right? Yeah, I was at a dinner with investors. Couldn't really step away. Big deal we're working on, but sounds like it all worked out. Carlos was watching me, reading my face. I must have looked as gutted as I felt. Someone else signed. I said, Oh, who? A neighbor. A neighbor? Michael actually laughed. That's random. But hey, whatever works. Anyway, I can't really talk long. Wanted to make sure you weren't dying or anything. I glanced at Carlos, at this kid who'd spent 2 days in a hospital chair for a man who wasn't even related to him. Then back at the phone where my son was casually dismissing nearly losing his father. I could have died, I said quietly. But you didn't. That's the important thing, right? Papers shuffled in the background. Look, Dad, I gotta jump on this next call. Glad you're okay. We'll catch up soon. Michael, love you, Dad. Gotta run. The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, staring at nothing. Carlos carefully took it from my hand and set it back on the table. Mr. Bob. He called. I said, voice hollow. He actually called. So that's something. That wasn't a call, Carlos said, anger creeping into his voice. That was a checkbox. That was him making sure he could say he reached out so his conscience is clear. He was right. I knew he was right. But admitting out loud felt like failing as a father. Maybe I raised him wrong. I said, maybe I... Stop. Carlos cut me off firmly. You didn't raise them wrong. You raised them. They became wrong all on their own. That's on them, not you. A knock at the door interrupted us. Maria Rodriguez swept in carrying 3 shopping bags and enough energy to light up the room. Juan followed behind her in his wheelchair, moving slowly but deliberately. Roberto, Maria descended on me like a loving hurricane, carefully hugging me while avoiding my injuries. She smelled like corn tortillas and cinnamon. Mijo, you scared us to death. Sorry, Maria. No more sorry. Only healing now. She started unpacking containers onto every available surface. I brought pozo, arroz con pollo, fresh tortillas, and flan for when you can eat it. The nurses say they have a refrigerator. One wheeled closer to the bed. His speech was still affected by the stroke, slower and more careful, but his eyes were sharp. Bob, good to see you breathing, friend. Good to be breathing, Juan. Heard about your kids. Juan's face darkened. Want to call them? Tell them what's what. Despite everything, I smiled. Think that ship has sailed. Amigo. They're lost, Maria said firmly, still organizing food. You have us now, and we take care of our own. Carlos told you already, yes? You're staying with us. I don't want to be a burden. Burden? Maria turned to me, hands on hips. Did you think you were a burden when you built our ramp? When you brought us meals? When you sat with Juan and taught him exercises, so his hand would work better? That was different. No different, Juan said. Same thing. Family. There was that word again. Family. Being redefined right here in this hospital room by people who didn't share my last name, but were showing up in ways my own children wouldn't. Maria finished organizing and pulled up a chair on the other side of my bed. Roberto, I'm going to tell you something. You don't have to accept it right now, but you need to hear it. I nodded. Sometimes God puts people in our lives, and sometimes he moves them out. Your children, they made choices. Bad choices. That hurt you. I see it in your face. But those choices, they don't define your worth. They define theirs. One reached over and patted my arm. You're our family now, Bob. Been family for a while. We're just making it official. Carlos stood by the window, arms crossed, looking satisfied. Told you, Mr. Bob. We got you. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up with emotion. These people, this family that wasn't mine by blood, was claiming me anyway, choosing me when my own children couldn't be bothered. The next 3 days passed in a blur of physical therapy, doctor visits, and the Rodriguez family rotating shifts to make sure I was never alone. Maria brought food. Juan brought books and sat reading while I dozed. Carlos handled all the logistics, paperwork, coordinating with doctors, planning my discharge. Jennifer finally called on day 4. The conversation lasted exactly 90 seconds. She was sorry she couldn't come. Her retreat had been non-refundable. She was glad I was okay. Maybe we'd see each other at Christmas. The whole thing felt scripted, obligatory, empty. I didn't tell her about Carlos or the Rodriguez family. Didn't mention that strangers were doing what she and her brother wouldn't. Just said I was recovering and let her get back to her spa treatments with a clear conscience. On discharge day, Carlos showed up with his dad's wheelchair-accessible van. Figured it'd be easier than trying to get you into my Honda, he explained. The nurse went over all my prescriptions, wound care instructions, and follow-up appointments. Carlos took notes on his phone, like he was preparing for an exam. You're very thorough, the nurse commented. Got to be. This guy's too stubborn to take proper care of himself. Carlos grinned at me, so I have to do it for him. Lucky to have you, she said, and it wasn't just politeness. She'd seen plenty of patients get discharged to empty homes and uncertain futures. Rolling out of that hospital, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief to be leaving, anxiety about recovery, grief over my children's absence. But underneath all of it, something else: gratitude. Real, deep gratitude for three people who decided I was worth the effort. Carlos drove carefully, avoiding bumps and potholes that would jostle my ribs. We pulled into the Rodriguez driveway, and I saw the ramp I'd built over a year ago. Solid, well-maintained, still serving its purpose. Home sweet home, Carlos announced. Well, you're home for the next couple months anyway. Juan was waiting at the door, Maria behind him. They decorated the guest room with flowers and set up a small table with water, medications, and a bell if I needed anything. You ring that bell, Maria instructed, and someone will come anytime, day or night. Understand? Yes, ma'am. Good. She kissed my forehead like I was one of her children. Now rest. Dinner's at 6. Pozo, your favorite. As Carlos helped me get settled in the bed, I looked around the simple guest room. Family photos on the walls. A cross above the door. Curtains Maria had probably sewn herself. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't my house. But for the first time since the accident, I felt safe. Felt cared for. Felt like maybe family wasn't just about who raised you, but who refused to let you face the hard times alone. You good, Mr. Bob? Carlos asked. Yeah, I said, meaning it. I'm good. He smiled and headed for the door, then paused. You know, my dad said something last night. He said maybe God let you build that ramp so you have a family when you needed one most. I thought about that after he left, about the strange way life circles back on itself. How helping someone once can ripple out in ways you never expect. How sometimes the family you make matters more than the family you're born into. Outside my window, I could hear Maria singing in the kitchen, Juan's wheelchair moving across the floor, Carlos talking on the phone, probably to his boss, arranging his schedule around my physical therapy appointments. My phone sat silent on the nightstand. No messages from Michael. No calls from Jennifer. And somehow, surrounded by the Rodriguez family's noise and love and chaos, I was okay with that. The reckoning with my children was coming. I could feel it building. But for now, I had what I needed. I had people who showed up, and that, I was learning, was everything. I nodded. Sometimes God puts people in our lives, and sometimes he moves them out. Your children, they made choices. Bad choices. That hurt you, I see in your face. But those choices, they don't define your worth. They define theirs. Juan reached over and patted my arm. You're our family now, Bob. Been family for a while. We're just making it official. Carlos stood by the window, arms crossed, looking satisfied. Told you, Mr. Bob. We got you. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up with emotion. These people, this family that wasn't mine by blood, was claiming me anyway, choosing me when my own children couldn't be bothered. The next 3 days passed in a blur of physical therapy, doctor visits, and a Rodriguez family rotating shifts to make sure I was never alone. Maria brought food. Juan brought books and sat reading while I dozed. Carlos handled all the logistics, paperwork, coordinating with doctors, planning my discharge. Jennifer finally called on day 4. The conversation lasted exactly 90 seconds. She was sorry she couldn't come. Her retreat had been non-refundable. She was glad I was okay. Maybe we'd see each other at Christmas. The whole thing felt scripted, obligatory, empty. I didn't tell her about Carlos or the Rodriguez family. Didn't mention that strangers were doing what she and her brother wouldn't. Just said I was recovering and let her get back to her spa treatments with a clear conscience. On discharge day, Carlos showed up with his dad's wheelchair-accessible van. Figured it'd be easier than trying to get you into my Honda, he explained. The nurse went over all my prescriptions, wound care instructions, and follow-up appointments. Carlos took notes on his phone, like he was preparing for an exam. You're very thorough, the nurse commented. Got to be. This guy's too stubborn to take proper care of himself. Carlos grinned at me, so I have to do it for him. Lucky to have you, she said, and it wasn't just politeness. She'd seen plenty of patients get discharged to empty homes and uncertain futures. Rolling out of that hospital, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief to be leaving, anxiety about recovery, grief over my children's absence. But underneath all of it, something else: gratitude. Real, deep gratitude for three people who decided I was worth the effort. Carlos drove carefully, avoiding bumps and potholes that would jostle my ribs. We pulled into the Rodriguez driveway, and I saw the ramp I'd built over a year ago. Solid, well-maintained, still serving its purpose. Home sweet home, Carlos announced. Well, you're home for the next couple months anyway. Juan was waiting at the door, Maria behind him. They decorated the guest room with flowers and set up a small table with water, medications, and a bell if I needed anything. You ring that bell, Maria instructed, and someone will come, anytime, day or night. Understand? Yes, ma'am. Good. She kissed my forehead like I was one of her children. Now rest. Dinner is at 6. Pozo, your favorite. As Carlos helped me get settled in the bed, I looked around the simple guest room. Family photos on the walls. A cross above the door. Curtains Maria had probably sewn herself. It wasn't fancy. It wasn't my house. But for the first time since the accident, I felt safe. Felt cared for. Felt like maybe family wasn't just about who raised you, but who refused to let you face the hard times alone. You good, Mr. Bob? Carlos asked. Yeah, I said, meaning it. I'm good. He smiled and headed for the door, then paused. You know, my dad said something last night. He said maybe God let you build that ramp so you'd have a family when you needed one most. I thought about that after he left, about the strange way life circles back on itself. How helping someone once can ripple out in ways you never expect. How sometimes the family you make matters more than the family you're born into. Outside my window, I could hear Maria singing in the kitchen, Juan's wheelchair moving across the floor, Carlos talking on the phone, probably to his boss, arranging his schedule around my physical therapy appointments. My phone sat silent on the nightstand. No messages from Michael, no calls from Jennifer, and somehow, surrounded by the Rodriguez family's noise and love and chaos, I was okay with that. The reckoning with my children was coming. I could feel it building. But for now, I had what I needed. I had people who showed up, and that, I was learning, was everything. Living with the Rodriguez family was like being dropped into a world I'd forgotten existed. A world where people actually checked on each other, where meals were loud and chaotic, where silence meant something was wrong instead of just another evening alone. The first week was the hardest physically. Everything hurt. Getting out of bed required strategy and determination. Walking to the bathroom felt like climbing a mountain. My pride took hit after hit, as I had to accept help with basic things I'd done without thinking for 68 years. But Maria, she had this way of helping that didn't make you feel helpless. She'd knock before entering, ask permission before assisting, treated me with dignity even when I couldn't button my own shirt. Roberto, she said one morning as she helped me into a clean t-shirt, you built a ramp for my husband with your own hands. You think I cannot help you with buttons? This is nothing. This is love. Carlos took 2 weeks off work. His boss apparently owed him vacation time, and he refused to let me argue about it. Every morning at 8, he'd help me do the exercises the physical therapist had assigned. Slow, careful movements that felt impossible at first. Come on, Mr. Bob. He'd encourage when I wanted to quit. 5 more. You got this. I've seen you carry lumber twice your size. This is nothing. That was 20 years ago. I grunt. Muscle memory doesn't forget. Your body remembers being strong. We're just reminding it. Juan became my afternoon companion. We'd sit in the living room, him in his wheelchair, me in the recliner Maria had positioned by the window. We'd watch old westerns, play chess, talk about nothing and everything. You miss your house? He asked one day. Sometimes, I admitted, but it's been empty since Margaret passed. Big house, just me rattling around in it. Started feeling more like a museum than a home. One nodded slowly. I understand. After stroke, I was afraid. Thought Maria would see me different. Broken. But she didn't. No, she saw me same. just one who needed help for a while. He moved his chest piece with his good hand. Your children, they see you different now? I thought about that. I don't think they see me at all, Juan. Haven't for a long time. They're lost, he said simply. Check. I looked at the board. He'd backed my king into a corner while I wasn't paying attention. Story of my life lately. By the second week, I could walk to the bathroom without help. Small victory, but it felt like winning a marathon. Carlos high-fived me like I just conquered Everest. Physical therapy started that week. Twice a week, Carlos would drive me to the clinic. The therapist, a no-nonsense woman named Gina, pushed me hard but fair. You got good bone structure, she said during the first session. Strong foundation, but you've been neglecting yourself. When's the last time you did any exercise besides work? Define exercise. She raised an eyebrow. Exactly. We're going to fix that. You're going to come out of this stronger than you went in. I'm 68. So? My mom's 73 and just ran a 5K. Age is just a number if you don't let it become an excuse. She worked me hard. Resistance bands, breathing exercises, core strengthening. Everything burned, but I could feel myself getting stronger bit by bit. Carlos would watch the sessions, taking notes. Then he'd make sure I did the homework exercises every day. Kid was relentless. You trying to kill me? I asked after a particularly tough session at home. Nah, try and get you strong enough to finish that community center project you were working on before the accident. He grinned. Plus, Mom says you promised to teach me advanced woodworking. Can't do that from a recliner. I had promised that. Forgotten about it in all the chaos. But Carlos hadn't. 3 weeks in, my phone rang with a Virginia number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mr. Mitchell, this is Amanda Porter from Richmond General. I'm calling about your emergency contact information. My stomach dropped. Is something wrong? No. Actually, we're updating our records. Your son, Michael, called yesterday requesting to be reinstated as your primary contact and medical proxy. I sat up straighter, wincing at the pull of my ribs. He did. Yes. However, given what happened during your emergency admission, we want to confirm with you directly before making any changes. Our policy is to always verify with the patient when there's been a previous refusal of care. What exactly did he say? Papers rustled on our end. He said there was a misunderstanding during your accident, that he's your son and should be listed as your primary contact. He was quite insistent. I looked across the room where Carlos was helping Juan with his afternoon exercises, where Maria was humming in the kitchen, making dinner. This family that had taken me in, without hesitation. Ms. Porter, I said carefully, there was no misunderstanding. My son chose not to authorize emergency surgery. Carlos Rodriguez made that decision, and I want him to remain my medical proxy. Silence. Then, are you certain, Mr. Mitchell? Your son seemed very concerned. 3 weeks later, I said. He seemed very concerned 3 weeks later. Carlos was there in an hour and hasn't left my side since. I'm certain. Understood. We'll keep your current records as they are. Your son may contest this, but with your verbal confirmation, we won't make changes without your explicit written consent. After I hung up, Carlos came over. Everything okay? My son's trying to get himself reinstated as my medical proxy. Carlos's face hardened. The audacity of this guy. He probably thinks he's doing the right thing. That family should handle family business. Mr. Bob, with all due respect, he lost the right to call it family business when he chose a business dinner over your life. Carlos sat on the arm of the couch. You don't owe him anything. He's still my son. And you're still the father he abandoned when you needed him most. Carlos's voice softened. Look, I'm not trying to replace your kids, but I'm also not going to stand by and watch them swoop in now that the hard part is done and take credit for your recovery. He was right. And somewhere deep down, I knew why Michael was suddenly interested. Thanksgiving had passed. Christmas was coming. People would ask questions. Having a hospitalized father he didn't visit would look bad for the successful businessman image he'd cultivated. Thank you, I said to Carlos, for everything. I don't think I've said that enough. You don't have to keep thanking us, Mr. Bob. This is what people do. This is what good people do. I corrected, not everyone. That evening, I got a text from Jennifer. First time I'd heard from her since the 90-second phone call. Dad, heard you're staying with Neighbors? Is everything okay? Do you need anything? I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to type back everything I was feeling. The hurt, the abandonment, the betrayal. But mostly I just felt tired. I'm fine, I typed back, recovering well. The Rodriguez family is taking good care of me. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. That's good. Let me know if you need money or anything. Money. That's what she thought I needed. Not her presence, not her concern, not her time. Just money. I'm all set, I replied. Thanks. The dots didn't appear again. Maria called me for dinner. The dining table was crowded with food, all of us squeezed around it. One said grace in Spanish. Words I didn't understand but felt in my bones. Carlos piled my plate high despite my protests. You need to eat, Mr. Bob. Healing takes calories. Halfway through the meal, Maria's phone rang. She glanced at it, frowned, and answered. Hello. Her face changed. Hardened. Yes. This is Maria Rodriguez. Who is this? A pause. Her eyes flicked to me. I see. No, Roberto is not available right now. He is eating dinner with his family. Another pause. Her grip on the phone tightened. You are his son, yes. The same son who could not be bothered to authorize surgery to save his life. Carlos and Juan both looked up sharply. I waved my hand, trying to get her attention. But Maria was on a roll. No, I will not get him. You want to speak to him? You come here. You look him in the eye. You explain why business dinner was more important than your father bleeding to death. Her voice rose. You want to be his emergency contact now? Where were you 3 weeks ago? Where were you when he was afraid? When he hurt? When he needed someone? Mama, Carlos said softly. She waved him off. We are eating dinner. As a family. Something you should understand, but clearly do not. Goodbye. She hung up and set the phone down with a sharp click. The table was silent. I apologize, Maria said, looking at me. But I am not sorry. I felt something warm spreading through my chest. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. Don't be sorry, Maria. Thank you. He had no right, she continued, still fired up. No right to call here, acting concerned now. Where was his concern when it mattered? One reached over and took her hand. Mi amor, breathe. She took a deep breath, then another. I am calm. I am very calm. Carlos snorted. You're about as calm as a hurricane, Mom. Despite the tension, we all laughed. Even Maria cracked a smile. Your son, she said to me, calmer now. He will call back. Or come here. You need to decide what you want to say to him. I don't know what to say. I admitted. Then say nothing, Juan suggested. Let him talk. Let him explain. Then you decide if his words match his actions. Carlos nodded. Dad's right. You don't owe him forgiveness just because he's your son. Forgiveness is earned. I thought about that through the rest of dinner. About forgiveness and family, and what we owe the people who share our blood versus the people who show up when it counts. That night, lie in the guest bed, I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. A gentle knock. Come in, I called. Carlos poked his head in. Just checking on you before bed. Need anything? I'm good. Thank you. He lingered in the doorway. Mr. Bob, can I ask you something? Always. Do you regret it? Not having your kids here. I thought about how to answer that honestly. I regret that they're not the kind of people who would be here. But I don't regret being here with you all instead. Does that make sense? He nodded slowly. Yeah, it does. He paused. My dad told me something tonight. He said you can't force people to be who you need them to be. You can only accept who they are and decide if that's enough. Your dad's a wise man. He learned from a good teacher. Carlos smiled. Get some rest, Mr. Bob. Big day tomorrow. Physical therapy. And then Mom's making tamales. After he left, I lay in the dark thinking about family. The family I'd raised and the family that had claimed me. The family I'd hoped for and the family I'd found. My phone buzzed. A voicemail from Michael. I almost deleted it without listening. But something made me press play. Dad, it's Michael. I don't know what you've told these people, but that woman who answered your phone had no right to speak to me that way. I'm your son. I have every right to be involved in your care. A pause. Look, I know I didn't handle the surgery thing well. I was under a lot of pressure. But I'm here now. I'm trying. The least you could do is take my calls. The message ended. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. He was here now. Trying now. 3 weeks and countless missed opportunities later. Now he wanted to be involved. The problem was, I wasn't sure now was enough anymore. Tomorrow I decided. Tomorrow I'd figure out what to say to my son. Tonight, I just wanted to rest in a house where people loved me without conditions, where showing up wasn't negotiable, where family meant something more than obligation. Tonight, that was enough. More than enough. Michael showed up 2 days later. Didn't call ahead, didn't ask. Just pulled into the Rodriguez driveway in his Tesla on a Saturday morning like he owned the place. I was in the backyard with Juan, practicing walking without favoring my left side. Physical therapy homework. Carlos was at the hardware store picking up supplies for a project, and Maria had run to the grocery store. The doorbell rang. Juan and I exchanged looks. Want me to get it? He asked, already turning his wheelchair toward the house. No, I said, I'll go. Time I face this. I made my way slowly through the house, each step more steady than the week before. Through the front window, I could see him, my oldest son, wearing a suit on a Saturday, checking his phone while he waited. I opened the door. Dad. He looked me up and down, taking the careful way I stood, the still healing bruises visible on my arms. You look terrible. I was in a car accident, Michael. Terrible is relative. He shifted his weight, uncomfortable. Can I come in? It's not my house. But you're staying here. He said it like an accusation. Yes. We stood there in the doorway, neither moving. Finally, I stepped aside. Come in. He walked past me into the Rodriguez living room, immediately looking around with barely concealed judgment. The worn furniture, the family photos covering every surface, Juan's wheelchair lift installed by the stairs, the lived-in comfort of a real home. So this is where you've been, he said. This is where the Rodriguez family has been kind enough to let me recover. You have a home, Dad. Your own home. I have a house, I corrected. This is a home. There's a difference. He turned to face me, and I saw something crack in his professional facade. Frustration, maybe, or guilt trying to look like concern. Why didn't you call me? He asked. When you got out of the hospital, why didn't you let me know you needed a place to stay? I eased myself into the recliner, my ribs protesting. I did call you, Michael, when I was dying, when the doctors needed consent for emergency surgery. Remember? His jaw tightened. I explained that. I was in an important meeting. You asked if it could wait until tomorrow. I didn't understand how serious it was. The doctor told you I could die without immediate surgery. My voice stayed level. How much more serious does it need to be? Juan had positioned his wheelchair in the kitchen doorway, present but giving us space. Michael noticed him and frowned. Can we talk privately? Juan is family, I said. He can stay. He's not your family. I am. You're my son, I agreed. But these past few weeks have taught me that biology and family aren't always the same thing. Michael's face flushed. So that's it? I make one mistake, and you replace me with your neighbors? One mistake. I leaned forward carefully. Michael, you didn't just miss the surgery. You didn't call for 3 days afterward. When you finally did, you treated it like an inconvenience, like I'd interrupted your schedule. I apologize for that. No, you explained. There's a difference. I took a breath, managing the pain. You explained why a business dinner was more important than your father's life. You explained why investors matter more than signing consent forms. But you never once said you were sorry. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. What do you want from me, Dad? You want me to grovel? To pretend like I haven't been busy building a successful career? You always taught us to work hard, to be ambitious. I taught you to work hard, yes. But I also taught you that people matter more than deals. Or at least, I thought I did. You're not being fair. Fair! I felt something sharp rise in my chest. Carlos, a kid who barely knows me, dropped everything to sit in a hospital for 5 hours during my surgery. Maria and Juan opened their home without hesitation. They fed me, cared for me, treated me like family. And you want to talk to me about fair? Michael stopped pacing. So what? They're saints and I'm a villain? Is that the story you're telling? I'm not telling any story. I'm just living the truth of what happened. I met his eyes. You made a choice, Michael. Live with it. But don't come here 3 weeks later acting like you're the victim. The front door opened. Carlos came in carrying lumber. Stopped short when he saw Michael. You could feel the temperature in the room drop 10 degrees. You must be the son, Carlos said, his tone carefully neutral. Michael sized him up, this young man in work boots and a flannel shirt. And you must be the neighbor playing hero. I'm the guy who signed the papers when your dad needed someone, Carlos replied. Wasn't playing anything. Well, I'm here now, so you can step back. I'll take over his care from here. Carlos looked at me. I shook my head slightly. Mr. Bob's not going anywhere, Carlos said. He's staying here until he's fully recovered. That's not your decision to make. Michael's voice turned cold, the boardroom voice. He's my father. Then act like it, Carlos shot back. Enough? I said, loud enough to cut through the tension. Both of them looked at me. Michael, I appreciate you coming, but I'm staying here. This is where I need to be right now. With strangers, with people who showed up, I corrected. There's a difference. He stared at me like I'd slapped him. I can't believe you're choosing them over your own family. I'm not choosing them over you. I'm accepting help from people who offered it when you didn't. I shifted in the chair, my ribs aching. You want to be part of my life? Then be part of it. Not when it's convenient. Not when it looks bad to your colleagues that you haven't visited your injured father. Just show up. Be present. I'm here now. Yes, now. After someone else did the hard part. I felt exhaustion settling over me. Michael, I love you. You're my son, and nothing changes that. But I can't pretend the last 3 weeks didn't happen. I can't pretend it didn't hurt. And I can't reward you for showing up late to something this important. His face cycled through emotions. Anger, hurt, shame, defensiveness. So what happens now? Now you go back to your life, your important meetings and your business dinners. And I recover here with people who've proven they care. I paused. And maybe when I'm healed, we can try again. Build something real, instead of just pretending we have a relationship. You're punishing me. No, I'm protecting myself. The words hurt to say, but they were true. There's a difference. He stood there a moment longer, clearly wanting to argue, to fix this with words the way he fixed business deals. But this wasn't something words could fix. Not quickly, not easily. Fine, he said finally, but don't expect me to just accept this. You're still my father, and you're still my son. That hasn't changed. But what that means, what that looks like, that's something we both need to figure out. He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the handle. Jennifer's planning to come by. She wanted to wait until you were stronger. Tell her I'll be here, I said, but the same rules apply. No performance, no show, just real conversation or nothing. He nodded stiffly and left. The Tesla pulled out of the driveway, probably too fast, like he was trying to escape something he couldn't outrun. Carlos set down the lumber and came over. You okay, Mr. Bob? Yeah, I said, surprised to find it was true. I think I am. One wheeled closer. That was hard. You did good. Did I? Because it feels like I just burned a bridge. No, Carlos said. You set a boundary. Bridges can be rebuilt. But boundaries are what keep you from drowning while you try. Maria came home an hour later, took one look at all of us, and knew something had happened. After Carlos explained, she hugged me carefully. You did the right thing, Roberto. Love without boundaries is not love. It's just enabling. That afternoon, I called Jennifer before she could plan some surprise visit. The conversation was shorter, but similar. She cried, which Michael hadn't. Said she didn't realize how badly she'd handled things. Said the spa retreat felt stupid now in hindsight. I can't turn back time, Dad, she said, but I want to do better. Then do better. I replied, not with words, with actions. Show me who you are now, not who you were 3 weeks ago. Can I visit? Really visit, not just a quick stop. When I'm back home, I said, when I'm stronger, come then. We'll talk, really talk. She agreed, and I believe her more than I believe Michael. Maybe because she'd actually admitted she was wrong instead of just explaining why she'd done it. The weeks continued. Physical therapy got easier. My strength returned bit by bit. Carlos taught me to use resistance bands, turn recovery into a game we could laugh about. Maria's cooking put weight back on my bones. Juan and I worked through his entire collection of Western DVDs. The Rodriguez home became my home in ways my own house had never been since Margaret died. 6 weeks after the accident, Dr. Patel cleared me for light activity. Said my recovery was exceptional for someone my age. Must be good care, he commented, looking at Carlos, who'd driven me to the appointment. The best, I agreed. That evening, the Rodriguez family threw a small celebration. Just us four and a couple of their relatives. Maria made a tres leches cake. Juan insisted on making a toast. To Bob, he said, raising his glass with his good hand, who built us a ramp, and in return, we gave him a family. Fair trade, I think. More than fair, I said, my throat tight. Carlos clinked his glass against mine. To found family. To found family, we all echoed. Later, as I was getting ready for bed, Carlos knocked on my door. Got something for you, he said, handing me a wrapped package. What's this? Open it. I tore off the paper. Inside was a picture frame. The photo was from a few weeks earlier, all four of us at the dining table, laughing at something one had said. I didn't even know Carlos had taken it. But it wasn't the photo that made my eyes sting. It was what he'd engraved on the frame. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up when everyone else walks away. Rodriguez and Mitchell, 2024. Carlos, you're not just staying here temporarily, Mr. Bob. You're part of this family now. Permanently, if you want to be. I looked at this kid, this incredible young man who'd signed papers for a neighbor, who'd sat through a 5-hour surgery, who'd given up weeks of his life to help me heal, who'd shown me what family could be when it was built on choice instead of obligation. I want to be, I said. He hugged me, careful of my ribs, but firm enough that I felt it. After he left, I set the picture on the nightstand. Tomorrow, I'd go back to my house for the first time since the accident. Start figuring out what came next. Maybe sell the place, downsize, maybe renovate it into something that felt less like a memorial and more like a home. But tonight, I was exactly where I needed to be. My phone buzzed. A text from Michael. I'm sorry, Dad. Really sorry. Not for how it looks. For what I did. Can we try again? I stared at the message for a long time. Thought about bridges and boundaries. About second chances and earned forgiveness. About the difference between words and actions. Yes, I typed back. But slowly. And on solid ground this time. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Thank you. I'll earn it. I promise. Maybe he would. Maybe he wouldn't. But I'd given him the chance. That was all I could do. I set the phone down and looked at the picture again. At Juan's smile, Maria's laugh, Carlos's proud grin, and my own face, healing but happy. Really happy, maybe for the first time in 5 years. The accident had taken a lot from me. My health for a while, my illusions about my children, my sense of security. But it had given me something too. It had given me clarity. Show me the difference between family by birth and family by choice. Taught me that showing up is everything. That love without action is just words. And it had given me the Rodriguez family, who'd taken in a broken old man and treated him like he mattered, who'd fed him and healed him and claimed him as their own. I'd spent 40 years building houses for other people. Strong foundations, solid frames, places families could grow and thrive. Turned out, I needed to learn how to build that for myself. And with the Rodriguez family's help, with Carlos's friendship, with Juan's wisdom and Maria's fierce love, I finally had a home, a real one. Not the house I'd lived in, but the family I'd found. And when the hard times came again, and they would, I knew exactly who would show up, not because they had to, because they wanted to, because that's what family does. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever felt abandoned by the people who are supposed to show up, remember this. You deserve people who choose you, who show up when it matters, who prove their love with actions, not just words. And sometimes, the family you need isn't the one you're born into. It's the one that refuses to walk away when everyone else does. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're the person who shows up for others, thank you. You're changing lives in ways you might never fully know.